Chair, you're ready to go.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Abbas, and I will chair the subcommittee for this meeting. I would also like to introduce the members of the subcommittee. With me are Councillor Mani and Councillor Shinik. Also in attendance are the legal advisors, Louis Bland, licensing officers, Paul Adams and Elizabeth Cox, Clerk Kenna Haley. Before we start, I would like to explain the process of the hearing. Firstly, the licensing officer will present their report. Following this, members and the applicant will have the opportunity to ask any questions. The interested parties are then asked to give their case, and this is followed by any questions. Then the applicant will give their case. This is also followed by the opportunity from members and the licensing officers. After this, all parties will have time to summarize their cases, with the applicant having the final say. The subcommittee, can I request everyone to please mute? The subcommittee will then retire to consider its decision and will be accompanied by the clerk and the legal advisor. We will then return with our decision. Does anyone have any questions? I don't see any hands raised, so I would like to remind everyone to mute their microphone when they are not speaking and to use the raise your hand option when you wish to speak. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. No, there's no apologies for this evening.
Thank you. Agenda item 2, items of urgent business. I have not been advised of any items of urgent business. So we'll move on to agenda item 3, declaration of interest. Can I invite members of the subcommittee to declare any interests?
I've none to declare, Chair.
Thank you.
Declare, Chair.
Thank you. So we'll move on to agenda item 4. This is a new application for a street trading consent. Do any members have any requests in particular? Permission for another person to appear other than specified in their advance notice, for permission to cross-examine, or any other requests? No? I would now like to ask the licensing officer to present the factual report.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Terence Hedges has applied for a new street trading consent. A number of local residents have objected to the application, therefore the matter is being heard before the committee this evening. Following the report, the subcommittee can either refuse the application, grant the application, or grant the application attaching any additional conditions necessary. Mr. Hedges of Bonner Walk, Trafford 100, submitted his application for the new consent on the 17th of December 2020. A copy of the application and supporting documents and photographs supplied with it is attached to Appendix 1. The application is for a converted London-style taxi to sell specialty coffee and cold food Monday to Sunday, 8 AM to 6 PM, and to be located on the Highways land, which is adjacent to All Saints Church and Fleet Road in Trafford 100. The location map is attached at Appendix 2. During the consultation period, 15 representations were received against the application. 4 representations were received in support of the application. Copies of the text from the emails is attached to Appendix 3. No representations were received from any other consultees, which included Highways, Environmental Health, Noise and Pollution Team and SSC. The Council Street Trading Policy and Standard Conditions are attached to Appendix 4. The policy provides under the Prevention of Public Nuisance section, consideration will be given to measures taken to reduce noise, refuse, vermin, fumes and odours. Under Schedule 4 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1982, the Council may grant a consent if they see fit. The Mayor has such conditions that they consider necessary. This can include conditions to prevent...
Officer, sorry, we are struggling to hear you. Can you please make it slightly clearer if you come close to microphone, please?
Sorry, it's because I'm trying to read off my other screen in the background. Sorry, at what point did you lose me? Did you have a...
If you can just start again, I think that would be more easy. For
No
everyone.
worries, sorry about that.
Thanks.
Okay, sorry, start again. Mr. Hedges has applied for a new street trading consent. A number of local residents have objected to the application, therefore the matter is being referred to the committee for determination. The subcommittee following this can agree to refuse the application, to grant the application, or to grant the application attaching any conditions necessary. Mr. Hedges submitted the application for the consent on the 17th of December 2020. A copy of the application and supporting documentation and photographs is attached to Appendix 1. The application is for a converted London-style taxi to sell specialty coffee and cold food Monday to Sunday, 8 AM to 6 PM, will be located on the highways land adjacent to All Saints Church, Drake Road, Chafford 100. A map of the location is attached to Appendix 2. During the consultation period, 15 representations were received against the application. 4 representations were received in support of the application, and copies of the text of these emails is attached to Appendix 3. No representations were received from any other consultees, which included Highways, Environmental Health Solution Team, and Police. The Council's street trading policy and standard conditions are attached as Appendix 4, and the policy provides under the Prevention of Public Nuisance consideration will be given to measures taken by the applicant to reduce the risk of nuisance from noise, refuse, vermin, fumes, and odours. Under Schedule 4 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1982, the Council may grant a consent if they think fit and may attach conditions to it considered reasonably necessary. This can include conditions to prevent obstruction of the street or danger to persons using it, or nuisance or annoyance, whether to persons using the street or otherwise. The subcommittee must therefore decide whether the street trading consent should be granted or refused, and if it is granted, if any additional conditions need to be added to address the concerns raised in the representation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do members have any questions of the licensing officer? Members? No? Councillor Manny, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions. The first one might be best addressed by the legal officer. I think if this was a planning application, I think generally there's a basic presumption that we should approve the application unless there are planning reasons to the contrary. Can I just ask whether that's the same presumption with licensing? Is the starting point that we should approve the application unless there are valid licensing objections to the contrary?
I think that one probably is best answered by Lois. This is slightly different to our normal licensing applications that we hear in that it's a consent rather than a license. So I'll throw that one back over to Lois if that's okay.
Lois, I think you are at mute.
Oh, sorry. I did briefly speak with Simon about this morning, and I believe, yes, your starting point is to grant, unless you are persuaded otherwise not to.
Can I ask a couple more questions, Chair?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Turning to 2.5 on page 6, you specifically mention prevention of public nuisance. I'm assuming because you haven't specifically highlighted in your report that you as a licensed officer have those concerns, it's your professional opinion that from the council's perspective or the licensing department's perspective, there are no issues of public nuisance or things of that kind. Is that correct? Is it fair to say that in your opinion you have no concerns around public nuisance?
As licensing, we don't have an opinion, professionally or otherwise, with applications. However, the environmental health team that deal with public nuisance pollution are a consultee on it, and they had no comments, no objections to the application whatsoever.
Okay, I've got 2 other quick questions, Chair, if I can. In relation to the objections, I've got to be honest. I mean, having been a councillor for 20 years, I've seen lots and lots of objections to planning applications, to these kind of applications. You name it, we've seen them. One thing that struck me is not one single objector identifies themselves as a local resident. If you compare that to the 4 people who have written in support, 2 of them identify themselves as being in the locality. I've never ever seen that number of that number of objections before, excuse me, where not one person identifies themselves as being a local resident or explains why the application is pertinent to them. I'm not saying that they can't object anyway, but it does. I'm sceptical that really it's almost like an orchestrated list of objections. To what extent are we confident that these are genuine local objections and not maybe objections from people associated with the church?
I believe the applicant will probably come back to this in a minute as well with when they speak. There is no vicinity test with the objections, hence the fact we put them all in because they do bear some relevance to the application. So it's for you as councillors to decide what weight to attach to them. I do understand there was some kind of round robin text or email that went round a group of people, which might be why there was suddenly a group of an influx of emails that we received. Again, that is quite common with licensing applications, as you'll know from previous experiences with them. But so it's for the committee to decide what weight to attach to the policy, to the emails. All that's been redacted off the emails is people's literally their email addresses. The entire content of the emails was submitted to you to consider.
Thank you. And one final question. On page 41, the report tells us that consents may not be issued where Thurrock Council considers that sufficient traders already exist in the locality. I know running through all the objections, the suggestion that there's already sufficient facility of that kind in the form of the Angel CAF. But one thing I want to be clear about is that competition is not the same as there being sufficient number already. But if the committee were in our deliberations, when we're considering are there sufficient facilities of this kind, what's the criteria for that? Because obviously what one person might consider as sufficient traders of this kind already, others might. So is there some kind of criteria? Is there something we should take into account when we're deliberating whether we think there's already a critical mass of this kind of service in the area?
Chair, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Just wanted to let you know we've got it looks as if there's a resident that's just joined in the waiting in the lobby. Are you happy for me to let them in?
Yes, please.
Hello, Liz, can you hear me okay?
I think we can see Liz if she can hear us. Yeah, she can. So can I request Councillor Manning to continue with this question, please?
Thank you, Chair. I was just asking, on page 41, it says that we can refuse consent where we think that there are already sufficient traders in the locality, and that might give rise to some kind of public safety or nuisance concern. I mean, that's obviously quite. How is there any criteria for us to consider in forming that opinion? What kind of things should we? Is there a specific number? Is there any guidance that would direct us in terms of what we should consider as a sufficient number of traders already? Because from what I can see, what really the main competition is in the form of the Angel CAF. That hardly suggests to me that there is such an abundance of this kind of trade in the area that it could give rise to a public nuisance. Is there anything that would guide us in our consideration on this specific point?
There's nothing further within the guidance. I mean, this is the policy and guidance that we have. I don't know whether there's any legal tests that Lois would be able to give you legal advice on during the deliberation stage of the process, but it's not something that we would advise on. It's the same again with any type of license application. We don't have those kind of policies in place at the moment.
Councillor Shinik, do you have any question?
No, I haven't got any questions at the moment. No, thank you.
Yes, thank you. So, does the interested party have any question of the licensing officer?
No.
I think someone has joined us, the person who has objected. Do you have any question for the licensing officer?
Liz, I think your microphone's muted.
Liz? You need to unmute. Liz, we cannot hear you. You need to unmute if you want to speak. Sorry, we cannot hear you. We can see, you are speaking, but we cannot hear you. Can you please unmute?
Liz, there should be a small picture of a microphone at the top of your screen. That's it. Unfortunately, we can't hear you. Is your
She is muted again. I think for fairness, I will give her another opportunity. Can you please unmute, and if you have any question for licensing officer, can you please put your question forward?
Chair? I think there might be a slight connection issue. I mean, I can't. Liz is muted, and I can't hear her. I don't know if anyone else is getting any sound.
No, we cannot hear her. Can you, if you have a number, can you please call her and see if she can hear us?
Chair, is her volume turned up?
Not sure. Can anyone hear her speaking?
Bear with me, Chair. I'll see if there's something I can do.
Thank you.
Chair, I'm not sure. Oh, Liz has just sent a message through. She mentioned she had turned the volume up and is obviously unmuted, but unfortunately she's still got no sound. Would you be happy if perhaps she put any questions through? I'm just trying to think of the best way of being able to get her.
Yeah, if she can text, I think I would consider this question, Liz, if you can hear us, can you please type in your question so we can take this question in? I think she cannot hear us. Her question is, she's concerns about parking and S-bend. I will give you an opportunity to present your case, whatever your case is. But if at the moment, if you have any question for licensing officer, please ask or type in your question. I think we'll move on and then we will give them another opportunity. So does the applicant have any question of the licensing officer? Can you please unmute?
No, we're fine at the moment, thank you.
Yeah, we haven't any questions.
That's fine. I would now like to ask the interested party to present their case. So can I first request Councillor Cockshell to have his say on this?
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll be very brief with this. I first met Mr. Hedges when he contacted me as his local council last year, asking if I can help in any way or whether this would be a viable idea. I said I can't make any decisions, but he needs to go to planning authority for the land, and then obviously tonight to licensing for that. But I did think at the time this would be a great service, and I'd like to make a few points about why I'm supporting the applicant tonight. I think this would be a great service for Chafford Hunter residents, as there's nothing else like this in the area. The location concerned is served by numerous large car parks, ideally suited for people who want to stop and go for a quick coffee. He's not offering, as I understand, and I'm hoping tonight you could make sure that with some provisions, anything of any seating area for food or drink consumption, for any long periods of time. And enjoy the idea, which I was confused about, of you reusing an old London taxi for this new service. These great iconic vehicles are being slowly phased out in central London, and obviously I think this would be a great reuse of these taxis. London taxi drivers have had it hard in this epidemic recently, and even before that, with they were applying for trades in London, and as we all know, and I'm sure you as licensing officers have realised how hard London black cab drivers have had it. And I think it's good on this council to encourage new ideas like this, and the council should encourage small new businesses in these hard times, and I think this is a great new opportunity, and we should support this. No other mobile coffee establishments I know is anywhere near this area, and I think the choice of why I was choosing to support Mr. Hedges tonight, and I'm happy to answer questions if you wish.
Can I would now like to ask the interested party to present their case. So the residents who are in attendance, if they want to have any objection or if they want to say something, so this is your opportunity to say.
Chair, if the interested party still having trouble with obviously presenting their case, obviously I'm just thinking of, as we can't hear her, would it perhaps, I mean, and obviously you've got legal there as well, but would the members perhaps be minded to take just a short adjournment, just so we can obviously, I'm just thinking in the interest of fairness, that we can obviously hear everybody clearly.
So can I ask members if you can adjourn this meeting for 5 minutes, and then we can try to reconnect, or we can. So do you want us to stay on the meeting, or do you want us to log out and then log in?
Okay, Chair, you're live again.
Can I please ask you to read the messages what Liz has sent, so members would know what her objections are?
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, due to some technical issues, we can't hear one of the interested parties. She's there with me. So Liz has said that they have concerns with regards to the parking and that it's on the S-bend. I'm presuming that's down the road layout. She's also said it's already the proposed location is close to an existing cafe. And that's all that I can see at the present.
Thank you, Kenna. Do members have any questions? Obviously, she cannot hear us, so if you have any questions, we can type in and then members. Does the licensing officer have any questions of the interested party?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Does the applicant have any questions of the interested party? The applicant is now your turn if you want to.
We don't have any questions. We've got some replies to that, which is that we placed, we actually put the taxi in the position that we want to, the application, and we took video footage and we took photos.
Do you have any question for the
Oh, we don't have any questions.
No.
Can you please mute your, yeah, thank you. I would now like to ask the applicant to present their case.
Okay, so kind of going on from what Mark said earlier, Terry's a London cab driver. When COVID started, he hasn't worked since then. Also, the cab trade, we don't know when it's coming back, if it's coming back. Terry's cab's now an older cab, so it will have to come to the road at some point, quite soon. So we thought, okay, what can we do? So we looked in the area, we looked what facilities we had on Chafford. We actually live on Chafford. So we thought, yeah, we'll convert the cab into a specialist coffee for locals, walkers, runners, people passing by. It's purely grab and go. There'll be no seating. It's healthy options, cold food. Isn't in competition with a cafe. That is a total different customer. There are 30,000 approximately residents on Chafford. So I think there's enough people for both businesses to be able to work. There are 56 car parking spaces for that area, and that only that's for 5 shops, which are in and out, apart from the hairdressers. So unless you've got an appointment there, you're in and out of the pharmacy, Tesco, etc.
I think what Liz was talking about is where the cab is positioned.
Yeah.
There were concerns about coming out the Beacon Centre, but if you look on the video evidence, there's so much of it that you'll see that the taxi is that far pushed back. You can only see the bend of the road, you can see up the road, you can see literally everywhere.
Yeah, there's
no danger to pedestrians, to other cars, to walkers, to so that I can understand their concern, but it's all there for you to see.
Yeah, we made sure of that before we even put our application
We wouldn't even
in.
no, exactly.
So we looked at all angles. We actually got our son to come out of the car park, every car park,
which you'll see on the videos.
Out, round the bend, towards the bend. So every exit from every car park for pedestrians, we actually walked and videoed that to show that there was no obstruction. So that part of the argument, if you like, is valid. Yeah. And yeah, lots more people are staying at home now. They're working from home.
It gives people a chance to get out, have a walk.
Yeah.
You know, to do a mental health. It's bad what's going on at the moment, and I think it'd be a great idea. You know, people to get out their homes, have a walk, grab a coffee, grab something good to eat. And the way they can still use the cafe, any hot food. I would guide them into the cafe. I've already spoken to them about that. You know, I'm not against the cafe. It's totally different.
It's a different customer. We are grab and go. We are not sit down, have a meal, have a chat with the kids. And no, this is, I'm going for a walk. I'm going to get out of the house. I'm going to grab a coffee on my way home. And if I'm passing, it's a total different customer.
And that's it, I think, really.
Yeah, I think
unless
that's it.
You know, anybody wants to ask us anything. And And also, just one more thing, getting back to that. Oh no, it's okay, we've done that. Okay, that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Does the license, sorry, do the members have any question of the applicant? So I have one question. So where will you keep your stocks?
Our stock will be at home,
At home.
in freezers, in fridges,
Yeah.
in coolers. Obviously, the tax is going to cost a lot of money to get converted, so there's a lot going into it as well, you know. So everything will be fresh, but the stock will be kept at home. Yeah.
Thank you. Does the licensing officer have any question of the applicant?
No, thank you, Chair.
Does the interested party have any question of the applicant? Liz, if you have any question for the applicant. Obviously, we cannot hear you. Can you please type in your question if you have any, I can see you have raised your hand. So if you can type in your question, please. Liz, if you can hear me, can I request you to type in your question or say your question, please? Can I ask our legal officer to advise us, for the sake of fairness? Obviously, she has raised her hand and she's unable to, obviously, we are unable to listen to her. Obviously, it means she has some technical issues on her side. So we all can communicate with each other. So it means there isn't anything wrong with the council IT equipment or within this meeting. So shall we proceed this?
Chair, I wonder, is it an option if anyone has got a contact number for her and could just ring her and speak to her over the phone? I think we're kind of exhausting all.
Kenna, do you have a number?
Unfortunately, Chair, in Democratic Services, we wouldn't have any numbers for any objectors. It'd only be the communication that obviously they made contact when registering their objection.
There's someone else. Jane,
I think perhaps they're just trying another route. Bear with me. Chair, Councillor Maney has his hand raised.
Yes, Councillor Maney.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at I think there's two of comments that Liz has made. They're really comments which have already been made over and over again in the paper. So could we not perhaps ask Liz if she has anything new, anything additional to add? Perhaps she could signal that in her comments, because if she's just going to reiterate what we've already seen over and over again in the objections, I don't think that's really going to make much difference to us. But if there's something she's got to add to that, then fine. We should try and get that from her. But if we're just delaying to only hear the same kind of arguments, I can't see what benefit that's going to bring to us.
Thank you. I think we have another participant, Jane. Jane, do you have any question? Can you hear us?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I've had an absolute nightmare, as you know. Lisa can't get on here as well. Apparently she's got problems with her internet tonight. But the thing is that I have no problems with another cafe in the area, but just not in my thing, because at the end of the day, that car park gets packed. and we have problems with parking anyway, and that does belong to the church, those car parks. So where would they park? No, it gets packed there. I even have problems with people trying to get parking in the car parks because of all the groups that go on and all the people coming in and out of Tesco's and the hairdressers. And but we have no problems, you know, like what about the station or near the gorge or something like that? There is scope for another CAF, but not right on the doorstep of an existing CAF.
So did you, at this stage, can I please request you, if you have any question for the applicant, so if you can have your question, and what I will do,
Yep.
I will give you another opportunity, yeah, to have your say. So at this stage, if you have any question for the applicants.
Okay, yeah. Have they tried down by the station? Because there used to be a CAF, an outside CAF there. So there should already be licensing for one there.
Okay, no, because it hasn't got the footfall there, especially now. People are working from home. They're not going to the station. And even when they were going to the station, that didn't work. So it clearly doesn't work around there. By
It
the
did work.
Armada, where it didn't work, it's closed. Where we're asking to be, you've got a bigger footfall. You've got people going to the pharmacy, to the hairdressers, to Tesco, to the vet, the takeaway. People walk that way. They go past the gorge, which there was one.
At the gorge.
There used to be a cafe at the gorge before
Before you took over the Angel Cafe.
Opened,
So there weren't a
Angel
problem
Cafe.
there then.
No.
So that's the reason we looked at where we're looking at, because of the footfall. And it wouldn't work by the station, especially now. And going forward, people will continue to work from home. They're not going to go back to offices as they did. Yeah.
Okay, so what about the gorge?
Well, again, the footfall, you haven't got the footfall there. We can't be hidden, we have to be seen so that passers by. Sorry.
Not suggesting different. Can I ask the applicant to mute there? I will ask them to unmute when to answer, please. Jane, can you please ask the question relating to the application, not suggesting different sites? If you have any question relating to this particular application, they have presented their case. So if you have question relating to this application, can you please ask your question? I will give you another opportunity.
So what was the, because don't forget I've missed half the meeting here. It's more than anything, it's right outside, as you know, and I understand that being a taxi driver and all that stuff, but we are all having it hard. I'm absolutely struggling. Don't forget, I am having it hard. And it feels like you are just trying to step on my doorstep, destroying me. Well, I don't understand. I do cold food. I do hot food. I do takeaway teas and coffees. At the moment, because of the laws and what's been going on, it's impossible to open. They're not allowing people to join up, to meet up. So at the moment, that's just a no-go zone. You know, that's part of the thing. You know, you've seen people get fines for meeting up. You're not allowed to meet. They actually advertise it that you're not allowed to meet up. So I don't understand what the thing is, because I mean, what about toilets? Whose toilets are you going to use?
Jane, what I will do, sorry, can I ask the applicant to answer the last part of this question, please?
Yeah.
They won't need to use the toilets. It's a grab and go. They're not staying there. There isn't seating. We're not going to gather in crowds and chat. Today, I'm going for a walk, or I'm popping out, or I'm passing by. I'm going to grab a coffee and I'm going to be on my way. No one is going to be using toilet because we haven't got seating. They're not there for a chat. when they go into your cafe, they're there, they're sitting down, they're having a chat, they're meeting up. This isn't that grab and go. It's a different customer. We're not having hot foods. It's not a place to go and
do cold
sit.
food.
Can I please ask you to mute your?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I will give you an opportunity if you have further questions.
Sorry.
Because this is not an argument between you and the applicant. You have an opportunity to ask the question, and they have their right to answer the question.
Yeah. So as for the toilets, our customers wouldn't be using their toilets or any toilet. They are grab and go. They're walking past. They're on their cycle. They're grabbing a coffee. They're going home. They're sitting in the park. They're going down the gorge. It's not. There won't be a crowd. So there's one person or a family that are walking past at the moment. It's a total different customer. We don't need toilets. They're not sitting down to eat.
So Jane, do you have another question?
Yeah. See, a lot of my customers don't actually sit down and eat. They go out. But what about yourselves with toilets? Are you going to go home all the time to use your toilets, or are you going to just wait all day not to use a toilet?
I think, can I ask the legal advisor? I don't think so. These are relevant questions to this application. This application is for a trading consent. This is not for kind of these.
Yeah, I think the applicants have made it clear, what the purpose of the license is for.
Yeah. Councillor Manny, you raised your hand. Do you want to say something?
I think you already said it, Chair. It was just to say we're hearing a lot of questions which aren't relevant. They're not things we can take into account. I mean, if it helps, if you look on page 40 to 41, that really summarises the grounds on which we have to judge this application and the considerations that we can take into account. So perhaps if you want to go to page 40, if you've got any concerns or issues around them, then they're things we can consider. But the issue of toilets and such, like, it's completely irrelevant. We would be doing an injustice if we based our decision on something like that. It's not within our remit. So the considerations really are on page 40 to 41. Perhaps if Ms. Piper has questions or comments around that, we can consider them. But if not, I'm completely closing myself to the comments that you're making at the moment, because they're not things that I can take into account.
So
Page
what
40 to 41.
Jane, for the sake of fairness, what I will do, I will give you another opportunity. Obviously, we have given ample opportunities to Liz, who was present before, but she was unable to hear us. So what I will do, I will give you another opportunity to present your case. If you have anything to say, you can say. So this is not your question to the applicant. This is what is your stance on this? But it has to be brief.
Right. Okay. The Angel Cafe does do cold food, and it does do grab and go. They're basically right on my doorstep, right on 50 yards, using car parks that belong to the church. When I went for a license, I had to show parking, I had to show toilets, so obviously they're going for a different license. I obviously do cold food. I'm finding it hard. I haven't got pages 40 to 41 in front of me. I don't know what that is. I don't understand what part of I don't know what that is. I wouldn't have a clue. It hasn't been supplied to me. So I'm totally at a loss. Also, I don't understand where he's saying that the gorge isn't between the houses. The gorge has got much more housing around it, loads more housing. It's right in the centre of the housing estate. I mean, people usually, if they're walking past, they're going past the gorge to get to the shops, or they're walking back past there. So that the gorge is ideal. I mean, that cafe at the gorge was fine. It was there for a long, long time. In fact, we actually shared business, but not right on the doorstep. You know, it was ideal. But I don't understand why it has to be right on my doorstep when it's not actually next to, because you're looking at people walking backwards and forwards past the gorge. So the gorge is much more realistic. But I'm sorry, I don't have sections 40 to 41 in front of me.
Chair, I think your microphone's muted.
Sorry, Jane. Yeah, now I would like to, do members have any question of the interested party?
No, thank you, Chair.
Jane, you have suggested this car park belongs to the church. So on what basis you are saying this? Do you have any evidence to present? Jane, you need to unmute.
Lisa Rinkelman will have that on the church, but she's supposed to be here, but she's having problems with her internet. She hasn't got internet tonight.
Do the licensing officer have any question of the applicant, of the third interested party?
No, thank you, Chair.
Does the applicant have any question of the interested party?
Yeah.
Yes, the car park.
What
Which
car
car
park does
park are we-
Jane actually mean?
Yeah, which car park is she talking about? Because
You've got a big one, which is the Beacon Centre car park, and
Yeah,
you've got the other two.
you've got another two car parks.
So they don't belong to the church.
No,
Can I ask one person to ask the question at one time?
sorry. Who speak? Are we speaking? I don't know who's speaking.
Yes,
Yeah,
you.
Is it us? Oh, okay. Yes, sorry. There are three car parks. One of them is the church car park, but that's always empty. There's hardly ever any cars there. The other two cars, and nobody's using that car park unless you're going into the church. I've never seen anyone
Right.
use that apart from the church. Sorry, I didn't hear that. The other two car parks, there's 56 spaces.
Not belong to the church.
They don't belong to the church.
Thank you. Can you mute your mic? Jane, do you want to respond to this? It has to be very
Hi.
brief.
Yeah. Hi. I think you'll find the car parks adjacent and in front of the church. They actually belong to the church. Because Lisa often actually has, you know, if cars have been parked. I think someone using one as a taxi thing one day, but she can actually get them removed. Because I'm pretty certain all that land belongs to the church.
That's fine. Thank you, Jane. Can you please mute your mic? Councillor Manny.
Thank you, Chair. It's more of an observation. Again, I think perhaps we're getting too hung up on ownership of the car parking spaces, but if they are owned by the church, then presumably it's entirely in the church's gift to regulate use as they see fit. Any owner of any land or any parking provision can restrict them as they see fit, and I'm not aware of any covenant or anything which would stop the church doing that. So presumably if the church didn't want people parking in its car parking spaces, it could, like any landowner, introduce restrictions or permits. Does the legal officer know, or the licensed officer know, of any reason in this case why that couldn't happen?
Liz, you might be better off answering this. I'm not aware.
Yeah, I mean, from licensing, it's the consent is for the highways land. So we would only look at the ownership of the land where the business in question is going. And this obviously has been very specified that this is on the highways land, not on the church property. In terms of the church car park and how they manage it, that's not something that we would get involved with at all with this.
Thank you. Obviously, we are considering this application, not land or the parking adjacent to this location. So we will stick to our application and then we will consider this. So we'll move on. I would now like to ask the licensing officer to summarize their case.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, you've heard the outline from the applicants of how they're proposing to run their business, and we've also heard from one of the neighbouring business owners about their perspective and their view on the situation. Obviously, the council have heard all the evidence this evening, so it's for them to make the determination as per the agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you. I would now like to ask the interested party to summarise their case. Jane, this is your opportunity to summarise your case, but it has to be related to this application, please.
All I can say is there's an existing business there. There is problems with car parking. We don't expect to be stayed in lockdown forever. You know, we are going to come out. As you know, there's been jabs and everything. There are problems with parking because there are lots of groups that go in to the church. There's lots of there's children's groups and stuff like that. I really cannot understand why they can't go down to the gorge where there's parking. And there is plenty of walking traffic backwards and forwards down there. There's plenty. So I just don't understand why it has to be right outside the door. You know, you're taking business and we're struggling as well. Everyone is struggling. It's not just taxi drivers, it's everyone. So to actually pull out the fact that you're a taxi driver, that means nothing. We're all struggling. I am absolutely struggling. Of course I am. You know, they're stopping people. And, you know, how am I going to cope? If they start taking my business, then I will just go downhill. And you have to lay people off. You know, don't forget, I've already got staff that are there. And, you know, you've got to consider all of that. That you're taking business from an existing business that took me 8 years to build up, 8 years from nothing. And they want to come and just take it from under me because a lot of my business is cold food and coffee and teas takeaway. That's lots of my business. And at the moment, we're all struggling. Okay, so thank you.
I would now like to ask the applicant to make a closing summary statement.
We don't see that it would be competition. We are a total different customer. To ask us to look at the gorge, that it's closed off, it wouldn't work for us. We researched it, and as we put earlier, it's the footfall we're looking for, not people coming in their cars. The church car park is always empty. There are more than enough spaces in and out of the other car park. So I don't think car parking is a problem anyway. We'd be happy to pass people over if they wanted a hot food or something we're not
which we've already said.
Our speciality will be coffee. That is the main thing. They do not sell specialist barista coffee. That's what we want to sell. And it's purely grab and go. Not seating, not for people to go and sit down for an hour or so. It is purely grab and go. And I know Liz said that we're not going to be in lockdown forever. No, we're not. But also lots of people will stay working from home. They're not going to go back to the 5 days a week working in an office in London. They may do two days a week, 3 days a week. They're not going back to 5 days a week. A lot of the offices are not renewing their leases. So that is our customer base. And for us to look anywhere else on Trafford's area, it just isn't going to work. You haven't got the football. And yeah, we'd have been happy. We spoke to the lady who runs the Beacon Centre. We'd be more than happy, you know, if someone came along, we'd have been more than happy to say, well, if you wanted a hot meal, you know, there's the cafe there. If you want to go and sit down for half an hour and have a chat or take the kids, which is primarily what they use it for. There's a lot of people that don't want to go and sit in there. So, you know, that do just want to go past in their busy day and grab a quick coffee. That's what we're offering. And we haven't thrown in, oh, poor, woe is me, you know, poor cab drivers. We didn't mean it in that way. We were just looking for a solution for us.
That's it, yeah.
I think that's it. I don't really know what else we can say.
Has everyone?
Can I say?
Sorry, Jane. You know, everyone has.
Yeah, no, it's just that they've brought in a third party, Lisa Ringerman, who's not in the meeting, but I think they misunderstood what she said. She was more than happy for them to open it after I had closed. She wasn't happy. She wasn't happy about them going when I was there. I think you should actually, as she's the third party and she can't speak for herself, they can't really bring that into it because that's not quite true.
So has everyone said all that they wish to say? Yeah. So the subcommittee will now retire to consider its decision and will be accompanied by the clerk and legal advisor to the subcommittee.
Thank you, Chair. We're back live.
Thank you for waiting. So would the legal advisor inform all parties of any legal advice received by the subcommittee during the decision-making process? And can I also request her to read out the decision?
Thank you, Chair. Any advice was given under the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act, and the decision is the application is granted. While street trading consents are issued under the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act, Thurrock Council operates a permissive regime, and while subcommittee listened carefully to the objections before it, it was not persuaded that they were sufficient to deny the application. This decision will be communicated in writing in due course. Chair.
Thank you. A full decision letter will be sent to you within 5 working days. This notification shall advise you of your right to appeal to the magistrate court. I would like to thank everyone for their attendance this evening. And
Chair, sorry.
Yeah.
Just to cut you off there. So there is no appeal.
Sorry. Yeah.
Appeal proceedings in these cases.
Obviously, the application has been approved, so there wouldn't be a appeal right to this. So I would like to thank everyone for their attendance this evening, and we'll close the meeting at 8:22. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your support.
Thank